Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the UpSet podcast. We hope that you enjoyed your Christmas on yesterday, hopefully with family or loved ones. Nevertheless, we know the reason for the season, and we can always celebrate that. As you can see, I'm solo here today. My UpSetter friends are not with me because we too are spending time with our family and close loved ones at this time. So we decided that this will be a great opportunity for us to go back and look at some of the best of the UpSet podcast. So if you haven't seen the UpSet podcast, here is your chance to catch a few snippets from some of our favorite shows. Check it out.
Because since we've already decided that there are various levels, and we realize that we are a representative form of governance, we know that the local member doesn't vote for the people who vote for the people who vote for the people in the upper reaches. Let's talk about the ones that we do vote for, the conference leadership. Let's talk about how we govern ourselves conference-wide. How do we select the people who will lead our conference? Now, before we go any further, this is a very critical thing, because our conference is about a $40 million in tithe operation on an annual basis, not to mention the almost $250 million worth of property that we manage and run. And let's not even bring into the consideration the hundreds of souls of individuals that we employ whose lives are affected and their families are affected by the way we run things. I'm imagining with that level of responsibility, both fiduciary and human, that there must be some real careful consideration to how we govern ourselves and how we choose that governance. How do we do it, ladies and gentlemen?
We cast
carefully.
lots.
You know what? Carefully?
Lots.
Oh, okay. There it is.
Rock, paper,
ladies and gentlemen, the
scissors.
show is over.
There you go.
now.
Rock, paper, scissors.
We do it carefully.
You know, I'm gonna
do we
throw
do
Chuck
it?
in. I'm gonna throw Chuck in this. Chuck is gonna say. Somebody said it just now, prayerfully, right? I mean, and really, when you look at it, isn't it really that? Nick, you set us all up, and I think you set the listeners up also to be able to say, "Wow, there's really a whole lot that's going on." That means
There's
now
a whole
I
lot
have
at
to.
stake. I don't know about going on, but
Yeah.
at stake. Yes.
Okay,
Right.
got you.
I think we brought it up last week. A lot of times people become interested after something happens and like, how did that happen? How did that person become so and so? And we have to shift from being reactionary to now understanding how, if you wondered how that person got there, now you have to do the research. Because listen, guys, since we're talking about Allegheny East, next year is our constituency session.
2022.
Well, isn't this so appropriate then to talk about then how we choose the people who provide the governance for this conference?
Yes.
So
how does
can I take a
it
stab at it
happen?
before Chuck, you go? I know you're going to say something enlightening. I'm assuming that people
or totally
Did
stupid.
he say enlightening or lightning? Which one?
no.
Did he say lightning
Hear
or
me out, hear me
enlightening? Okay.
I'm assuming as a newbie to this conference that people politic in secret, and you pray that you have enough, people who are for you when you show up for the constituency session, and then you act surprised and you pray you win. Is that what happens? Because I don't see anybody publicly, campaigning like, hey, I feel led to lead the conference at this time. This is my vision, my goal. And we prayerfully consider the options before us. And then we go to the committee. So it seems like everything's done in secret, and then everyone's surprised and shocked at what happens, when that time comes in 2022.
That couldn't possibly be true for a church where we believe in transparency and openness and honesty. I would imagine that doing something in secret would be totally inimical to all of the purposes and values that lead us to be what we are. So,
Inimical.
In theory.
Charles, would you like to speak now?
Please fix it.
Don't let Charles speak.
Dude.
No, I think for some of our members, I know I can go in 4 different directions, but for a lot of our members that are not fully engaged, they feel like, oh, this is just bureaucracy and control. That's all it is. It's bureaucracy and control. I really don't have a voice.
Right.
Because even if my voice is heard, it's not listened to. And there's a difference. So, I can say, oh, and that's fine. In some people's mind, the deal's already cut, so it doesn't matter. I found something interesting because of the angle that I see a lot of things that we talk about from the media standpoint. I'm able to observe some things that maybe when you're not in the thick of it, you don't see. For instance, the last constituency session we had,
Mm-hmm.
when they had open mics, there was a lot of discontent, a lot of confusion, a lot of, I didn't know this was, and who is this person and all. And that's a lot of pent up anger and resentment.
And flow of information.
And I really think we need to address that.
Yeah.
So the character of Uncle Tom is a heroic character. The person upon whom it was based, Josiah Henson, is a truly heroic character. So where did we get the idea that Uncle Tom was a person who was counter to the interest of black people? Well, now this is where it becomes poisonous. That came about because the character of Uncle Tom was so persuasive, so influential in getting people to want to get rid of slavery, that racist and white supremacists began to launch minstrel shows where they perverted the character of Uncle Tom to make him look like what he was not. They used those minstrel shows to try to mock black men in general. And so after a while, the minstrel shows began to exert such an influence that people began to laugh at the Uncle Tom character as he had been perverted by white supremacists. This caused people at a certain point to ignore the true Uncle Tom from the book Uncle Tom's Cabin and the person who became the basis for that character, Josiah Henson. So whenever we use the expression Uncle Tom, we are simply following the examples of and working on behalf of white supremacists and racists who want us to forget how noble certain black people can be. So we should stop using that expression. But even more than that, the idea that one of us can tell the other one of us whether or not you need to do something, be black enough, in my opinion, is anathema to good Christianity and to good sociology. So I stand today, my fellow upsetters, to say, let us, from this point forward, forswear from the use of the epithet Uncle Tom. What say ye one? What say ye all?
You know what's interesting, Pat? The other name for cancel culture is actually call out
Call
culture.
out culture.
Call out.
Right,
Mhm.
right,
So
Yeah.
you're spot on.
right. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I think it varies. I think sometimes people are calling out a behavior, and unfortunately, when it happens to people who are well known, that's an opportunity. People see that as an opportunity to get more widespread support for something. So it's almost like that person ends up being the martyr for a larger cause. Take this recent incident. We just came out of Domestic Violence Month.
Right.
We've talked about there's been this thread of
End it now.
ended now, and abuse experienced by women at the hand of pastors. And so when all of that has been circling around, and then someone makes a statement like the best person to rape is your wife, it's like, oh, this is our chance. And everything is now pointing to this one person and say, we will no longer stand for this. But unfortunately, it's being directed at him. I want to say unfortunately, because in some ways,
I'll say unfortunately.
yeah,
But
yeah.
something needed to be said
Yeah,
to
Yeah,
him.
we have
Yeah.
to denounce that kind of rhetoric. We have
Yeah,
to.
That deserved to be addressed. No,
Yeah.
no
Right,
doubt.
right.
I mean, but what we're talking about a guy, and I strongly denounce his sentiments. And for those who don't know it, he basically was saying that, and he was very strident with the wives. When you get married, you belong to your husband, and therefore you must yield yourself, submit yourself. And he spoke about it from a sexual perspective, and that where a wife had sued her husband for rape, he said, I don't understand how you can do that. Your wife is the one you should rape, he said. I denounce his words. However, he did not sin. We're not talking about a man who sinned.
Right.
We've got guys who have, stolen money and gone through the soprano section of a choir, and they didn't lose their job.
Don't forget us altos.
There's so many things that I can share, so many encounters with Elder and Sister Fordham that I've had. We worked closely together in terms of communication, because that was very important to Elder Fordham. He always wanted to speak to his constituents. He always wanted to make sure they knew he cared and that he was there. I think about, and I'm sure many of us have done this, I think about the last conversation that I had with him. And it was after camp meeting, and, the office had taken a mental health week. And I was away with my family when I saw my phone ring. And of course, I never hesitate to answer Elder Fordham, vacation or not. And he called. He said, "Tasha, like, yeah, how you doing, Elder Fordham?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm sitting here with my wife. And I just saw on the news that Haiti's president was assassinated. We need to get something out. We need to say something." And I said, "Sure, Elder Fordham, whatever you want." And it just reminded me that he was always thinking about others. Even when he had his own trials and tribulations, he was always thinking about reaching out to others. And, that's one of the things that I appreciated about working with him, is that he always had other people in mind and always wanted to make sure he was communicating how much he cared about people. And so, of course, that conversation will always be etched in my mind. Of course, you think, I wish I had said more, or I wish we would have talked longer and all of that. But that's just the kind of person he was, and why it was such a pleasure to work with him on a daily basis.
Elder Fordham was to me a type of man that he was so humble. He
Yes.
With the powerful position that he had. He was the kind of person that never, ever appeared that went to his head. In fact, when we're in meetings, or if we just have a one-on-one talk and I refer to him as boss, he didn't like that word. He didn't like that name. He says, don't call me, don't call me boss. He just doesn't like that. But he was like extended family for me and my family. And we had a lot of warm conversations together. I experienced the very first time I realized what kind of a warm and caring person he was a situation that I had, and I won't go into all the details because the story's long. But I'll truncate it down to this. I was in need of some assistance on the grounds here. And he noticed that I was out, doing something, and he said, he stopped. I was on the road. He stopped. He said, "Did your car break down?" And I said, "No, Elder." I said, "I am actually trying to retrieve something I think I lost along the road here." And he was dressed on his way to a speaking engagement. And he said, he says, "I'll help you." I said, "Well, Elder, you're on your way." He says, "No problem." He actually did a U-turn. This is when he lived up here, near the campus. Went home, changed his clothes, and helped. Came back to my location and helped me. He actually canceled his appointment. He said, "It's more important for me to help you out right now because it looks like you need help." Some years ago, but I'll never forget that. And that was my first real personal encounter with him, like a one-on-one type situation. And he clearly showed that he prioritized immediately on the spot, that he felt my need was more important than him going to a speaking engagement.
When someone asks you, how do you feel? And your response is, "I don't know." What we're saying, are we really saying, "I don't know"? Or are we saying is, "I don't want to go into myself to see myself because I don't know what I'm going to find and whether I'm going to be able to handle it," right? And many of us, we avoid asking people how they really feel because one thing we don't want to be is triggered with our own stuff, right? I don't want your pain to actuate my pain. So the quickest way for me to avoid my pain is to help you turn off your pain, right? And so we provide comfort and hope where we should just provide space. Right? We try to tell people, no, don't cry when crying is the thing that they need. Why don't we want people to cry? Because it's going to then affect us in our tears that we've put aside. right? And now we're going to enter into your pain, and we've tried our hardest to put ours away, and it's going to, like there's an old Russian proverb that says if you live next to the cemetery, you can't cry at every funeral. And we teach people the art of detachment when we really don't work with our issues. We just sort of displace them, put them off, and they come up later. They come up later at unopportune times. Remember when Kobe Bryant died? A whole bunch of brothers were crying, and yes, everyone was sad that Kobe Bryant died. But many of us brothers, we found it now socially acceptable to shed tears in community, and not all of us were grieving the fact that Kobe Bryant died. I'm a Celtic fan. I cried for Kobe. I wasn't crying for Kobe. I'm a Celtic fan. I don't care, Lakers. But a lot of us, we're crying because we are now taking things that we have displaced. And now because it's socially acceptable, I can now express my pain that I've been carrying all this time. Well, so when we find the unique language, we have to enter into our pain. We have to understand what it is that we've gone through. We have to take a look at the continuum of our lives and measure all of those points in our lives that it seemed like we have grieved someone, we've lost someone, and then discover for ourselves, well, what was my habit? What was my tendency after all of these losses? Did I just put them away? Did I just try to pick myself up and just carry on? Did I sit down and talk with someone? Once I understand that, then I can start to understand how my innate action to grief, what that actually is. Well, how do I normally respond to pain? And for most of us, if we're telling the honest to God truth, we try to put it away because who wants to be in pain, right? But that's not how it heals. That's how we store it, keep it, carry it. And then it comes out in negative behavior.
I want our listeners to know that even if you could go left or right with your thought process, and I think Nick started with this, our whole life is chance. What we eat is chance. Our friends is a chance. Everything we do in life is chance. We're gonna put out the lotto and say, oh, you shouldn't do this, when there are a whole lot of decisions or bets that we make every single day that don't come to fruition. Right. So again, it's the condition of the heart that we need to be able to think about when it comes to things like this. Why? God gives us everything.
That's right.
I mean, and I really mean everything. God gives us everything. And the day, listen, go back to how Nick started. Nick started by talking about the Garden of Eden. God says, I'm giving you all of this, but that thing right there, don't touch that one. Don't go near to that one over there. All of a sudden, a flying, beautiful animal speaks to them. There's a lot of depth to the whole thing, Nick, as you came through that, because it's not just the chance thing that comes along, but it's the deception. Gambling brings on the deception side of it, what makes us say to ourselves, I can do better than God. I can do better than his salary. I can do better than what I have right now. Wow. And when that happens, the salary that God is getting. Hold on 1 second.
Yeah, get your organ. Thank you.
My. No, but I'm feeling it now, Nick. I'm feeling it now the way you started, because we all hate you the way you start stuff off, and we'd be like, "Oh boy, here we go." And we all around, we were afraid for you to begin this, but now, no. All jokes aside, I'm saying,
don't tell the people that. Don't tell them.
We love Nick past December. I'm saying I've learned something from us talking here today. Yeah. The biggest word that I took away from this is deception. That's what I took away from it.
Exactly.
And others losing. I think that's
right.
Others had to lose in order for me to gain. And I was so glad you pointed that out, because the conference, one time we had a drawing. Treasury was doing a drawing for those churches that completed their safety inspections, and we had a live drawing, and I was all excited, and yes, all right, pulling out names and reading names. You won $250 towards your church upkeep. You won 200. And then I went back, sat down at my desk after we went live, and I realized that someone had commented on Facebook, I can't believe our conference is gambling. And I was like, what? It's just like, how you felt.
It was hard for me to write that too.
And I felt so bad, because we were so excited. We were able to give back to churches and help, and the heart was in the right place. And then someone saw it as us gambling. But when I hear your definition, no one lost. No one lost anything. No one had to
Yeah.
do something in order for those churches to be recognized. So it's
Yeah,
very important to understand what
chance is exciting. I mean,
It is.
we all love a good mystery that we watch on television, a whodunit.
right.
I mean, chance is exciting. It's the evil of gambling is not the chance, because time and chance come upon us all.
Mhm.
The evil of gambling is the fact that at the end of the day, bodies will litter the ground and blood will be spilled on the floor so that I might have a windfall.
Wow, Nick, I was just gonna say, dating is gambling, but then when you said that last part, I
It's according to how you date. If bodies are on the floor and blood's on it.
I think that it is so dangerous for us as a people. I mean, we have to get to the point that we not, stigmatize, certain things to think if you have mental illness, that's crazy. No one wants to think I'm not crazy, as soon as you talk about that. But there are people actually hurting in the congregation. And if I can be, may I be honest? Can I be transparent today, people? You know me, I try to be transparent, right? So my personality, I'm kind of like a happy person, right? And so a lot of times people with depression like want to hang with me. And I kind of brings me down, right? So I kind of run. You see what I'm saying? I mean, I'm not trying to be mean, but I like to stay happy because I got my own issues, right? And so let me tell you what Jesus did to me. God is amazing. So I went to this ministers' conference, right? And when I went to the conference, it was all on mental illness. So everywhere I was going was teaching depression. And so I was trying to duck it, right? And not go to any of those classes. So Jesus sent me to the perfect one. I did not know what I was getting into. And when I was there, I mean, God just opened my eyes and opened my heart, gave me more compassion for people with mental illness, because they can't help it. Depression, anxiety, bipolarism, manic depressive disorder, personality disorder, schizophrenia, all these things. And it showed that 1 out of 4 people have mental illness, and many are undiagnosed because we don't want to go. We don't want to see anybody. We don't want to be deemed crazy. We don't want to see anybody. So I started preaching this in my church because I know many people in my church. I don't want to label anybody, but I know some behaviors that were very questionable. I mean, I could start pointing out people, right? And so I started preaching, and I tell you, I had people coming to me saying, "Hey, Pastor, let's have a support group." And of course, I kept it confidential, but there were starting to be so many talking to me behind closed doors. I suspected, some, but they were opening up, and so many felt suicidal. And they were like, "Pastor, I battled." They say, "I think suicide every day." And I'm going, "Oh my God,"
Right.
And so I just brought them sermons for Jesus, because Jesus had to run into mental illness, right? He was the healer. He had to have the same issues. And so these people were taken to Jesus. That's why we need to go to the doctor. You need to release. Our minds can't handle this kind of stress, And so when I started preaching, I mean, I had people were so thankful, and they wanted to start a support group, so that they could just come together and share, because people who may feel that, they're healthy minded, they don't know the pain that those who have mental illness or mental disorder, what they go through. I mean, I can't imagine thinking about suicide every day, because they're tired of being in the shell. They're tired of having, those thoughts on their minds, and they feel like they pray. Where is Jesus? Why is Jesus not healing me? And so they come to us as pastors. I want to lead them to Jesus. So now I have to teach them how to trust God when he's silent, how to trust God when it doesn't look like, he's moving when we want him to. So I have to explain it's the same as when someone has cancer, or when someone has, some other prolonged disorder. We're still trusting God, So Pat, that's been my experience. And it's
like
so
that.
well needed,
But I'll tell you what I learned from the domestic violence I experienced as a child and as a young adult. I learned as a man how not to be.
Hey, there we go.
Amen.
Hey.
With God's
And I
help.
passed that on to my sons as well. So it didn't have the effect on me, But and as you said, Marlena, yes, that was God. God had a path for me, and He didn't want me to get crazy or get put in jail. So but the church has all these predispositions because of our belief system and our denomination, and then all of the celebrity we put around couples and people in the church. We kind of say, "Oh, that's not really happening." That's not. Yeah.
Can I
But
add,
it is happening.
Can I add this piece, Marlena, real quick? The reason why I want to add this is because I think that if our churches, and some of our churches are like this, by the way, and I'll pick up one of them, which is the Capitol Hill Church. They have formed like a counseling service, right?
Very good.
And I think that we have to, members have to look at the pulpit as confidential again. I have to say, if people can look at the pulpit as confidential, couples, males, men, to say, "I feel this way, Pastor," whether they're talking to a woman or a male pastor, it doesn't make a difference. Once they see the seat as confidential, then our church will move into a different direction concerning this. But what old heads say, what we say is that I'm too ashamed to go to my pastor to say I'm beat up as a male. As a female, they may be too ashamed to tell them because it's going to spread to the rest of the elders, or it's going to spread to somebody else of what's going on in their family. And there's a lot of reasons why people don't do that is because you don't want that woman to hear back from an insensitive person something like, "Did they deserve that?"
Yeah.
You understand what we're still kind of behind on that type of thing, where the first thing that comes to our mind is, "Oh, he's abusing her, boy, she must be a real something, or at home, or she must be this, that, or the other." We find excuses for that where there should be none. I'll go back to it one more time by saying this. If the seat was confidential, and if we're still working within the needs of the community, the church will pull towards the community instead of the church having to self destruct because they don't want to work on what they know is already there.
But Pat, sorry, Manly, just real quick.
Go ahead, dear.
There's sometimes in the church that kind of fraternity type of attitude. So, you talk about the confidentiality of the pastor, but if it's an elder or deacon or his right-hand man, or they don't want to go to him because they know that your instinct is going to be to take up for your boy or take up for your fellow leader. You don't want the fellow leaders to fall. And so the one who don't feel confident.
Or if your church is riding high spiritually, and we have that. Sometimes you see the church is on the move.
Yeah.
Something comes in at a moment like that to set it back. We don't want that setback to happen based on someone who's popular or something that's going on in the church.
You mean church is on the move or the money is on the move? Which one are you talking about?
We're not going to spin off to another show, GP.
Okay.
No, but
I said spiritual. I was like, spiritual.
Yeah, say it's spiritual.
All right, guys, that wraps up today's flashback from some of the UpSet podcasts of the past. We hope that you enjoy them. Please write us. Let us know what some of your favorite ones are. You can reach out to us at upset@aecsda.com. Of course, we are looking for more topics for 2022, so we invite you to share those with us as well. We thank you for your support of the UpSet podcast, and we look forward to future episodes. Next week, we'll continue with sharing some more of the best of the UpSet podcast. Thank you, everyone, and continue to enjoy your weekend. Bye-bye.